Please welcome Emma Freeman. Emma, thank you so much for coming out today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
So, how does it feel to have killed off one of Australia's favourite TV characters?
Well, I felt very bad, and I actually have never received death threats in my life. And that night I received a lot. And I was like, I didn't write the story, I just directed it. So, but it was really interesting how a piece of television could provoke such a response.
Is there a demand now that you're in that higher position and people know what you're capable of? Do you suddenly get roped into doing tasks that might be a little bit outside of what you would normally do, and it's sort of annoying you picking up more tasks than usual?
Yeah, I think one of the things about news and current affairs TV, in Australia at least, is you're always going to be doing tasks that you're not meant to be doing. And I think that's the difference between people that go on to have a successful career and those that kind of stagnate and don't do anything. Because if you ever compare the way TV news is made here as opposed to overseas, particularly in the States, they'll have one person doing one minor thing and that's all they do. Whereas we just don't have the luxury of that in Australia. There's never enough money, so there's always one person doing 3 jobs. And it's the person that's prepared to go out and say, okay, yeah, I can do that, I'll do that as well. Someone calls in sick, or someone's quit or been fired, or all of a sudden hasn't come back to work, you're like, yeah, okay. So someone's got to do that stuff. And if you put your hand up to do that, then yeah, you get experience, but also that's when you get noticed.
Yeah. How important is it to know each of the departments you're managing from the perspective that you were once in their position, I guess you could say?
Well, it's very important. If you're asking someone to do a job, you probably should know exactly what that job is. Otherwise, you're going to be heading for trouble. And I've always taken the approach that I would never ask someone to do something that I hadn't done myself or didn't know how to do, because invariably you might end up having to do it yourself. So it always pays to be able to step in. But I think it's one of the great things about certainly where I'm working at the moment. It's a very democratic kind of process. Everyone's kind of in there together. There's no strict hierarchy. Sure, there's got to be someone that takes the blame and the responsibility at the end of the day, but everyone's in there, and if someone falls over and can't do something, then there's always somebody to pick them up.
Right place, right time.
Yep.
The vibe I get from experiencing our course is that a lot of people are mostly equipped to become producers more than any other role.
Yep.
That's just my general feel of things. I guess to finish, is there any pitfalls specific to producer work that you think we ought to be aware of?
Pitfalls, I'm not sure. Like you have to take opportunities. I think the biggest mistake would be to think, I don't know if I'm quite qualified to do that, so I might I won't put my hand up because I don't want to fail. The majority of people that really have great careers, at some point they've kind of made the decision, I can't really do that, but I'm going to give it a go. And if you fail, sure, you failed, but at least you've given yourself the opportunity to succeed, and you've got to bite off more than you can chew, I guess. And then
you've got nothing to lose. And
absolutely.
Pointing into the right direction.
Yep. It's about grabbing the opportunities whenever they present themselves.
In your life, did you see that 80s and 70s and 60s hair that I just was wearing? It's shocking. But Texas stays the same, thank goodness for that.
Now, let's go back hundreds of years ago.
Yes.
When you first started off your career in media.
Yes.
Where did it all start?
I'd started doing voiceovers and radio drama, which they had back in those days. And this was in Queensland, in Brisbane, where I grew up. And one of the producers said, look, actually, I don't know that you really, think really hard about NIDA, because I think you'd probably be all right on radio or TV. And about the same time I got a job in a newsroom, they wanted somebody who had no experience because they didn't want to pay very much money, in fact almost no money at all. I think it was 10 shillings a week or something. This is the days before dollars and cents, by the way, so this is the Middle Ages. And also they wanted me to work really hard and long, and which I did, because what happened was, here I was, a kid out of school, not long out of school, writing news bulletins. See, there weren't any journalism degree courses back then, so I got to write breakfast news almost by myself and present it on the half hour. So you're doing writes and rewrites and looking at the story from a different angle and freshening it up and doing that, deadlines, your half-hourly deadlines. Then in the afternoon I got to go out on the road and do promotions for the sales department. So I was Captain Johnny Jet for quite a few months there.